Okay then, so this is a review of my Lavazza A Modo Mio coffee machine. This is a tiny espresso machine in the sense that the brand name is the Tiny range from Lavazza. It's an EcoPod system that gives you compostable pods aimed at reducing your eco footprint, if you like. And the coffee inside is Lavazza, and my preference with coffee is for Lavazza coffee, and I tend to buy the Qualità Rosa coffee when I'm buying ground coffee. So this pod system gives me the opportunity to drink exactly the same coffee from a pod espresso maker, which is really handy and helpful. It gives me a good cup of coffee nice and easily. I'll talk a little bit about the reason why we bought this particular model, what I like about it, and also the economics of it. Couple of spoilers, I think, first of all. The first thing is I really like this espresso machine. It makes a really nice cup of coffee. I think it looks nice. And importantly for us, it fits into a really small space. It is genuinely, it's well named as a tiny espresso machine. You can kind of see the size of it there. In terms of its sort of frontage, it's about the same size as our kettle. Obviously it goes back a little bit further, but this means it fits into what is undoubtedly a small kitchen very nicely, and that means you don't have to get rid of anything else to put it in there. The second point is really the economics of it, and with the EcoPods, it's a pretty expensive way of making a cup of coffee. It's not good from an economic point of view if you're thinking about it in those terms. So undoubtedly, over a reasonably short period of time, you could buy a much bigger, fancier coffee machine. You might even be able to make better cups of coffee with it over time, and you could do so for less money. But the problem with that, of course, is you couldn't do it in the space that we've got there. So we would have to get rid of our rather nice bread machine that we use every day, or not have a kettle, or not have any knives stuck against the back of the wall where the kitchen is. And so it doesn't add up in quite the same way. So economics not great. Coffee and size of the machine, I think, really very good. And so I really like it. I think it's a good machine. So let's have a bit more of a close look at it. So you've got a nice little bit of branding there on the front, the Lavazza A Modo Mio logo. And also, you probably can't see it very well on this video, but you've got a nice little Lavazza brand across the side there. It comes in lots of different colours. You can get a black one. The red one looks rather nice, actually. You get a red one too, or we got a white one because everything in our kitchen is white, and it sort of made sense for to add it there and not have a jarring thing in a different colour. Let's make a cup of coffee, and you can see it in operation. So I've already made one this morning. So if I take the pod out of there, you can see that we've got an empty holder there. It's all plastic construction. You pop the pod in there, and then that goes into the machine like so, and then you press this button on the top, and that flashes for a few seconds while the machine warms up, and you can then pop your cup for the coffee inside of it. I'm going to use a little sort of shot glass so you can see the coffee going in. It's worth saying I don't normally drink coffee out of a shot glass, but I think probably gives you a sense of how it looks on video. So I press it, and you can see and hear, I suspect, that this is quite a noisy machine. I reckon it is a bit noisier than a kettle. So let's just watch it brewing. this point it's already made an espresso shot, and I tend to just let it fill up a little bit more with water. It gives me a sort of strong cup of coffee, a bit stronger than an Americano, but you know, not as strong as a espresso. And I can then just press the button on the top when I want that to stop. And we'll see there, we've got a nice cup of coffee, I reckon, with a really good creamer on the top, good creme. And it's basically just a very nice cup of coffee. If you want to, through the same process, you can take out the pod, make another one. And this time I'll make a larger cup of coffee. I can just remove this drip tray. And what I'm going to do is pop in a larger cup. And this is still a small cup. It's worth just doing a bit of comparison. That's more of a sort of mug size. But this will make a pretty nice cup of coffee on the scale of a sort of Americano, I suppose, from a cafe. Okay, so about a minute and 20 seconds, and you can see that the coffee machine has turned itself off. You've now got really quite a nice cup of pretty strong coffee. That's you know, it's a good cup of coffee. That tastes great. It's not espresso strength, obviously, because there's about sort of 3 or 4 volumes of water for a cup of espresso. But really, it's a pretty nice cup of coffee if you drink a strong Americano. So, what about the economics of it? Well, with the pods, you're paying roughly 22p for each cup of coffee. Now, that is about 10p more than if you buy a reasonably good brand bagged ground coffee. Per cup of coffee, good quality ground coffee works out at around about 10p per cup. If you're making these, it's about 22p per cup. Now, I think we drink 5 or 6 cups of coffee per day, which is, over a year, roughly speaking, 2,000 cups. And if you add all of that up, that's about £200 additional per year that we're paying to use the Lavazza A Modo Mio, rather than using a different sort of coffee machine. And you could buy, over the course of a year, therefore, a pretty good countertop kitchen espresso machine. For instance, a Gaggia or a Delonghi or something of that sort. Now, I actually think that this makes better coffee than a £200 Gaggia or a Delonghi. But that's probably personal taste, and of course with one of those you'd get milk frothing capability and so on. You'll notice this is purely for making espressos. There's no little frother or anything like that poking out the side of it. Now, if I had the space, I would probably say that economics doesn't add up at all for me, and it would make much more sense for me to go for a more expensive machine. And I know that sort of at around about the £500-600 mark, you actually start to get really fantastic espresso machines. You could get a Sage Barista stainless steel espresso machine that would last you decades and make absolutely fantastic coffee. And within 3 years, that would be cheaper than having this machine. But it's also big. It would take up all of the space used by the Lavazza Tiny and also our Panasonic bread making machine. And so we would have to make a compromise there. We'd have to start thinking we're not going to have bread anymore made in the bread making machine. and that's not a compromise I want to make. So you almost start to think, well, actually, we'd have to move house and get ourselves a larger kitchen. So that just doesn't quite work. And for that reason, I really do think that this little Lavazza machine is a good buy. It's costs about 50 quid at the moment to buy one of these. We paid less. The Lavazza do offers periodically. I think it was on offer for about £35 when we bought it, maybe a little more. I can't remember. But you know, it's a very small amount of money, and indeed you can do it on a subscription model and get it for £1 if you want. And it's worth having a look at the Lavazza website to decide if you want to do it that way. So it's worth thinking. Over a few years, this really doesn't make a great deal of sense financially, but as an instant way of squeezing really a very good cup of coffee into a small space, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it looks really nice. It doesn't take up any space at all. It works very well. And so for us, it is a great fit. So I have no hesitation in recommending it at all. We've been using it now, I think, for 3 months, and it hasn't missed a beat really. It's still making great coffee with no problems at all. So that's the Lavazza A Modo Mio coffee maker. Certainly it's a recommendation from me if you're looking for a cheap and quick way of making really great espresso in a small space. In what I think is the traditional manner. If you like this video, I'd ask you to give it a like and to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.